I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently, a podcast where we explore the ins and outs of what becomes possible when we're willing to think, do, and show up differently to the moments of our everyday lives. Hey, Quinton, welcome to Differently.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to have you back. It's been almost a year, or actually it's been just over a year since we did an episode together. And for those of you who want to go back, it's called The Love of My Life, and it's episode number 6. So I wanted to have you on the podcast today to talk about something that you have and continue to have a deep impact in my life. And I know that my clients and the people listening to this podcast are likely doers and hyperachievers and busy people who juggle lots of things and move from goal to goal. And when I met you, one of the things that I was immediately attracted to was your calmness. And I've always said, like, you are the rock in my storm. And you bring a solid, calm force to our marriage, to our home, to our life. And I want to share that with the listeners and really get in your mind and have you share what this is for you, the role that it plays in your life. And I also know that when you have coached people, that this idea of who you're being versus what you're doing has played a huge role in the conversation that you've had with clients. So I'm excited to dive into this. So let's start with just describe or help us understand the difference between being and doing.
So for me, your being is on the inside of you. Like, I always look at it like we're called human beings for a reason. And our being is inside of us. Our bodies are not us. So it's our spirit, it's our soul, it's that connection that's inside of us all. So we are, I heard it explained, we are electromagnetic beings on the inside of us. And we feel that. You do feel that when you're with people. You have connection, you have attraction, you have electricity, you have magnetism with them. Like, there's all this invisible world taking place. And who we are being is determined mostly by our minds and our thoughts. And I don't know that many of us are aware of how powerful our thoughts are and how they create who you're being in life in any given situation.
You mean we're not human doings?
We're not human doings. No, we're human beings. Isn't that something?
That's so amazing. That's like a mind-blowing thing right there. That's like in front of us all the time, like that we're human beings, but most of the time we're acting like human doings.
Yeah. So anytime you want to take on endeavors, I believe that you should be looking at who you're being, and then that dictates how you do, what you do, the way you do. It all starts from who you're being. And most of the time, we live our lives out here in this world of circumstance and life, trying to do and accomplish and do all the right steps in order to get something. And, this physical world, it's a trap. And so your being is the most important thing to take care of. And we don't really take care of it, I don't think. Many of us are unaware of it. It takes a lot of mental discipline to be aware of it, to notice who you're being at any given moment. Am I being a jerk? Am I being loving? Am I being kind? Am I being generous? Am I irritable because things aren't working? And so you have to be intentionally diligent with your mind to step outside of yourself, outside of this physical skin, and almost watch yourself from a perspective outside of yourself. And then you can see and feel who you're being. And then you can make choices based off of that to create who you want to be. And then when you're doing the actions that you want to do, you're coming from a place, the foundation of your doing.
So have
Does that make
you,
sense?
yeah, it does make sense. So have you always been this way?
I think so. I've always been aware that I am not me. Makes any sense? I am just like inside of this body right now. This is my astronaut suit,
Mm.
on this planet. I've always been aware of that fact. I've never felt like home in my skin, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense.
I mean, I do, because I do know that like these are my hands that I'm looking at, but not me. And so I am acutely aware of a lot of the invisible world around me.
And
Feel
so,
it.
yeah, it's so interesting. It reminds me like how you and I always talk about kind of like the Chinese finger trap and how usually, you in life, so many things like we think we're supposed to go this direction to achieve something, but we actually need to go the other direction. And I think this is another example of that. Like you're saying that we as humans, myself included, I'm such a doer that I'm doing things in order to get somewhere or feel better or achieve something because it's going to then I'll be happier or in a better place or it's going to lead to somewhere. And what you're saying is that it's really about being first. Like if we're focused there first, then the being informs the doing. Say more about that.
Yeah, this physical world is a lie and a distraction. Why we're human beings, and so that's why when you ever hear that phrase, like wherever you go, there you are. People try to go and do all these crazy things thinking they're going to find something better or greater, when in reality it's right where you are, inside of you. The feelings that you're looking for are right there. You just have to know how to manage them, control them, be aware of them, so that no matter where you are, it's the same.
I love that.
But
No, just that it took me, following that illusion of, if I check all these boxes, that's going to lead to a happy, fulfilling, successful life. And years and years ago, my life kind of fell apart and I realized there has to be a different way. And that was my journey, or pivot point where I didn't have to, but I chose to start cleaning up my inner world. And as I did that, the experience I had in the outer world started to change in a huge, profound way. And that's what you're talking about is no matter where you go, there you are. So a lot of times, like even with clients, they think they want to leave a job or a relationship or move to a new city or build a home and then they get there to that destination, but those same unfulfilling feelings after the honeymoon has worn off, those same unfulfilling feelings resurface. And it's exactly because of what you're saying.
yes, yes. So I think one of the struggles people have is they think that when they're focused on being, it means that they're not going to do anything anymore.
I think you and I have
And that's
had that
not,
conversation.
yeah, it's not true. What you do and how you do it shifts. It doesn't mean that you stop doing or stop going places or stop achieving things. Um, but how you achieve them and how you do them begins to look differently when you
Yes.
focus on who you're being. So
So
maybe that means you don't rush through things. Maybe you're more present to the experience that you're going through. If you're going to an amusement park with your family, who you're being is different than when you're going to work on Monday morning. So your thoughts of going to work, if you could shift your thoughts as if you were going to work on Monday, the same as you're going to an amusement park with your family, changes your experience of how you do work on Monday morning.
hmm, that could have a profound impact, right?
Huge impact. I mean, I've always heard it explained this way too. Like when who you are being, let's say you have a vacation plan for the next week. You're going to go to Costa Rica, right? You're going to go lay on the beach. You're going to have some margaritas, whatever. And you're at work on Friday afternoon. Who you're being now versus Monday morning after the vacation is completely different because your thoughts are expectations of creation, of excitement. So if you can control your mind even just a little bit, it doesn't have to be the exact same experience as it is going on vacation. But if you can shift it just a little bit so that Monday morning has a completely different experience, you 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 show up differently.
That this conversation excites me so much because it reminds me of, like you and I talk about, you know, living a created life or being an innovator of your everyday life. Like this is exactly what it's about, because a lot of times we can't control the circumstances or what's happening in our life, but we always have choice around how we're going to show up, who we're going to be, the perspective we're going to have, the actions we take. And it all starts with what you're saying is really like who before do, right? And if you, like a
Yes.
lot of times on coaching calls, I'll ask my clients, like if they're having a struggle or they're expecting to have a meeting and they're expecting the outcome to not go so well, I always ask them like, what's the ideal outcome? And then they'll say, that there's connection and collaboration and that we reach, a win-win. And then I will ask them like, who do you have to be in order to increase the likelihood of that outcome? And that's where we have power and influence as human beings, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing, the power.
So how has this played a role in your life? And actually, before you answer that, I know at one time you created a possibility for your life. Tell us what a possibility is and how that evolved for you, and then how that plays a role in your life today.
So creating a possibility for the future. It's about creating a foundation to live from, the way I see it. And so, who are you going to be in life, in your life? And so, who I decided I was going to be, who I wanted to be, not to fix anything, but just as a guide stone, as a foundation, who I'm going to be, who I am is the possibility of leadership and love. That is my possibility for life. And I can now take that and look at any circumstance, any momentary time, and say, am I being loving and am I being a leader? And if I'm not, then I can reevaluate. So there's a lot of ways of being I have to give up in order to achieve that. I have to give up being scared. I have to give up being afraid, fearful, intimidated, mean, or irritable. Like those are the ways of beings that I have to give up. So when I find myself in one of those ways of being, whether it's something that the kids did or something that circumstances that happened or something broke on the house, then I get to choose who I'm being. And that choice comes into play with my thoughts. So how I think about things, I can choose at any moment to be loving in my family, to be a leader in my family. And then that gives me my actions that I need to take. And it all snowballs from there.
Yeah, I so see that in the way that you parent, in the way that you show up for our marriage. So, talk a little bit more because I feel like a really important part of this for all of us is what you have to give up, right? So, say a little bit more
Yes.
about that.
Well, that's the hard part, that people don't ever want to give up. They're attached to suffering. They're attached to being irritable. They get like a power from it. They get righteous. We talk about being right. Like anytime you and I are in an argument, right? I'm right about this. She's so wrong. She did this wrong. I'm righteous, and I in my of catching her doing something wrong. She treated me poorly, and so I have the right to be angry and miserable and upset. Well, what good does that do? If I'm going to be the possibility of love and leadership, then I need to show and lead my family in love and show them how to be loving and how to give up and forgive and not necessarily be righteous. Okay, so what that you did something wrong? What good does it do me in any aspect to run around pouting or being miserable or putting it in your face that you did something wrong? Like what does that accomplish in any sense? None. But we as people get so attached and find so much power in it that we can't relinquish it. And so by having that as a possibility, I can give it up at any moment, even though sometimes it sucks and I know like, oh, I got to give this up. Well, I just do it. And then life is so good. And so once you begin the path, it's like easy. Like, oh, so what? Whatever. It doesn't affect you anymore because I'm more committed to who I'm being. It doesn't matter who you're being. Care less. I'm going to be who I say I'm going to be. You have no power over me. So I get to choose, and I just constantly keep choosing it.
How has that?
It makes life
what?
peaceful. Peaceful. It makes life peaceful. My life is peaceful. I have contentment. I live in presence with it, and I've like can view it from an outside perspective most of the time. Like detach from it.
Is your commitment to being leadership and love, or do you also have another commitment like you're talking about our marriage? And what I hear is like that there's also like a larger commitment to what you're creating inside of marriage. Is that true, or is it really just your being?
Well, all that other stuff is the result of who I'm being.
Mm. So a happy, peaceful marriage is a result of you being leadership and love.
Yeah.
Mm.
All of those things are outcomes. What happens to most people is they skip over who they have to be in order to achieve it. They just go to the top and try to maneuver and manipulate and scheme and strategize and all this extra energy that's wasteful. When in reality, all they had to do is change who they're being and everything else will fall into place.
That's kind of mind-blowing. I'm actually having an awareness right now about you that I hadn't seen before, that you do conserve energy because there are fewer steps involved in what you're creating inside of our marriage. and who you're being inside of our marriage. Because I add in the doing part, and what I hear you saying is that if you just focus on the being, the outcome is almost a natural result of who you're being.
Yes.
And the doing is also a natural outcome of who you're being.
Because you don't really have to think about the doing anymore. Once you have the being, if I'm going to be loving, the doing comes naturally. I say kind words. I say nice things. I give hugs. I give kisses. I give whatever. Like, I'll drive to get you a Starbucks, right? Like that's, I'm going to be
Yeah.
loving. Those actions come easy. I don't even have to think about them.
So for
And when I
people,
find,
yeah, go ahead.
no, that's all right. I was just
No,
saying, like,
keep going.
being aware of like when it changes, when I catch myself being irritable, because people think, oh, you're just that all the time. Well, no, I'm not. Sometimes I'm irritable
He's
and
not.
grumpy, but I can catch myself, and I have a mental dialogue inside of my mind saying, okay, grouchy, I'm irritable. What's going on? This is what do I don't want to be this way. This isn't helping my day. Okay, so what do I have to shift? And so we just do mentally. It's a mental thinking. It happens in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a practice, right? Like if I look back over the years of our marriage, right? Like I can see how much you've grown like in this. Like this comes much more naturally to you now. So for people listening, like how do you begin this practice if this is a completely new concept?
For me, it's really about monitoring my mind, monitoring my thoughts, monitoring what's causing my mood, what's causing every feeling I have. I mean, it's to some people it might be a little overwhelming, but it is a constant, uh, really just an awareness. It's really becoming aware of your thoughts, aware of your feelings, aware of your energy inside of yourself. And as you practice that and begin to shift those thoughts and have control, like we've talked about, it's like mental fitness. I mean, it's like building your muscles, like going to the gym. You have to go and constantly, if you're going to have that six pack, you got to constantly be doing work. And you kind of have to do that on a daily basis with your mind in order to really have uh, real impact or shift in your experience.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it is our thinking is the foundation, right, to everything. Like my approach with my work is a little bit different than your approach, but the foundation is the same. And the foundation is your thinking, and your thinking really does shade and color the experience and quality of your life. And so bringing greater awareness to that and understanding your relationship to it, right? Like you said, we're human beings, but for most people, we relate to our thoughts as though they're us and that they're the truth. And when you're with what you're talking about, when you can get some distance and the work I do with my clients is get them writing so they can kind of step back from their thinking to be able to see the separation, that their thoughts are not them, and that you don't have to believe everything that you think. And so what you're saying is really increasing that awareness first. And then
Yeah.
maybe there is just a couple questions of like starting to ask yourself, who am I being? What is my energy conveying right now? And is it in harmony with who I want to be and the outcome I want to create here?
Yeah. So good.
It's so good. So doing is not bad.
No.
Being a doer isn't bad. And it, it's created a lot of, well, gosh, I've created a lot of things in doing. And I want to just say that for everybody that this isn't about not doing, but really being aware and being mindful of the who behind the do can have a
Yes.
huge, profound impact in your life.
Love it.
Yeah. So, final thoughts. What do you want to leave people with?
I would say create who you want to be in life. It's something that's bigger than yourself, something to live into. Who do you want to be in the world? Who do you want to be in your family? And, if you can set that out as like a goal or a mission, I'm going to be this, what would be possible? And so the possibility then presents itself when you're being that.
That's so beautiful.
So that's what I would suggest to people.
Well, and it really is like a way to, if you think about if you're at a place in your life where you're in a new season or you're making a change or a pivot in your life, or you want to create some new and different results, start with your being and like you said, Quinton, not to fix something, but really like who do you want to be in the world as like you're saying, a mission, and let that lead the way to that next level or next season of your life. That's exciting. Hey, Quinton, I'm so glad you came on to talk about this. I think this is, I don't know, this like stretches the mind, and I'm really excited for people listening. And thank you so much for taking the time to join me in this conversation. And I can't wait to do it again.
So good. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you love listening to this podcast, may I ask you to leave a review in Apple Podcasts. These mean so much to me, and I read every one. They are a great source of fuel for me as I am creating these episodes. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast app and help me spread the word. If this episode could impact someone you know, please share it and pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.